Welcome to today's groundbreaking debate. We've harnessed the power of artificial intelligence to explore one of the most enduring questions in religious scholarship. Is the Bible corrupted or reliable? To help us dive into this complex issue, we've created two AI characters, each representing a different view. But don't think this will be a simple debate. I'll be here to stir things up and push these AI debaters to defend their positions. Let's meet our characters and get started. Meet our AI debaters. First, we have AI Ezra, who defends the Bible as reliable and divinely preserved. Opposing him is AI Leah, who argues that the Bible has been altered and corrupted over centuries. They'll both present their case, but I'll be making sure no stone is left unturned. At the end, our panel will cast their votes on which perspective holds more weight. Let's get to it.
The Bible is one of the most scrutinized books in human history, yet its core message has remained consistent. While translations and manuscript variations exist, extensive textual analysis shows that the Bible has been remarkably preserved over time. Scholars rely on thousands of ancient manuscripts, such as the Dead Sea Scrolls, to confirm that today's Bible is an accurate reflection of the original writings. God's hand in preserving His Word has ensured that its reliability is beyond question.
Okay, Ezra, you're saying God's hand preserved the Bible, but let's not ignore human hands. We've got scribes, translators, and, let's face it, plenty of room for human error over thousands of years. Aren't you downplaying the very real possibility that human mistakes, whether accidental or intentional, could have altered key parts of the text?
Human error is indeed a factor, but the sheer volume of manuscripts we have allows scholars to compare texts and identify these minor discrepancies. These are typically spelling differences or word order variations that don't affect the meaning of the text. Scholars estimate that we can reconstruct the original New Testament with over 99% accuracy.
Leah, do you buy that? Ezra makes it sound like the Bible's text is a 99% certainty. What about that remaining 1%? How much trouble could that cause?
That 1% matters, especially when it includes passages that have shaped Christian doctrine. For example, the poem longer ending of the Gospel of Mark, which appears in later manuscripts but not the earliest, adds significant theological elements like Jesus' post-resurrection appearances. That's not just a small mistake, it's an addition that influences how people understand the resurrection.
Right. So you're saying changes like that could shift entire theological foundations. But let me ask you this, Leah. If we didn't have the original texts, why didn't the church just rewrite the whole thing if they wanted to control the narrative? Why are we even having this debate if they had total control?
Let's look at the historical context. The Bible we have today is the result of centuries of copying and translation. One of the most significant influences came from early church councils, like the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD. While the council didn't edit the Bible itself, it helped establish the theological framework that influenced later copying and interpretation. There's also the issue of translation errors, particularly with the Latin Vulgate and later versions like the King James Version, which introduced their own mistakes.
Hold on, Leah. You're saying the Latin Vulgate and the King James Version introduced mistakes. But how significant were these errors? Are we talking about a few misplaced commas, or could they have drastically altered what early Christians actually believed?
Some of the errors were minor, but others were far more significant. For example, the Latin Vulgate mistranslated the Hebrew word for horn as ray of light in reference to Moses, which led to Michelangelo famously sculpting Moses with horns. That's a minor, though strange, mistake. But more importantly, translations like the King James Version introduced theological biases, such as the inclusion of the Johannine comma in 1 John 5:7, which was likely added to support the doctrine of the Trinity. These aren't trivial differences. They affect how people interpret the Bible's core teachings.
The Johannine comma. I've heard that one gets scholars fired up. So you're saying an addition like that was made for doctrinal reasons. But Ezra, over to you. Does Leah have a point? How do we know these additions weren't just snuck in to push a theological agenda?
That's a fair question, but let's not ignore the overwhelming manuscript evidence we have. While there are instances like the Johannine comma, the vast majority of manuscripts don't contain these additions. Scholars are well aware of these variations and include them in modern translations so readers know exactly where the differences lie. And let's not forget the incredible consistency of the Dead Sea Scrolls, which show that the Old Testament, for example, has been preserved with remarkable accuracy over millennia.
All right, I hear you, Ezra, but you're talking about the Old Testament here. What about the New Testament? Aren't the manuscripts we have from the New Testament much younger than those Old Testament scrolls? Doesn't that give us more time for errors to creep in?
That's a good point. But let me clarify. We have over 5,800 Greek New Testament manuscripts, many dating back to within a few centuries of the original writings. This is an extraordinary amount of evidence for an ancient text. By comparing these manuscripts, scholars can reconstruct the original wording with a high degree of accuracy. And the more manuscripts we have, the easier it is to spot and correct any changes that might have occurred over time.
Leah, are you convinced by Ezra's numbers game here? Can we really trust that comparing all these manuscripts gives us a solid reconstruction of the original Bible?
Manuscripts are helpful, but they're not infallible. The fact that we have so many manuscripts also means we have more variations to deal with, and not all changes are innocent. Some were made intentionally, whether to clarify a doctrine or to align with a particular theological viewpoint. The ha pericope, adulteri, the story of the woman caught in adultery in Naran Sea. John 7 verse 53 to John 8 verse 11. Is a good example. It doesn't appear in the earliest manuscripts, yet it's a beloved passage for many Christians today.
Ah, yes, the story of "Let him who is without sin cast the first stone." Classic. But if that wasn't in the original, then how does that change how people should read the Bible? Ezra, what do you think?
While the pericope adultery and a few other passages are debated, they don't change the Bible's core message. Modern Bible translators include footnotes explaining these textual issues, so readers are fully informed. And it's crucial to remember that no major Christian doctrine depends solely on these debated passages. The teachings of Jesus, the story of redemption, and the Bible's overarching message have remained consistent throughout centuries of transmission.
So basically, you're saying the footnotes have got us covered, huh? But let's not forget, people don't always read those footnotes. Leah, does that transparency in modern translations change your stance at all?
Footnotes are a step in the right direction, but they don't change the fact that human hands have influenced the Bible over time. Whether through translation errors, deliberate edits, or theological additions, the Bible has evolved. We need to approach it with caution and recognize that parts of the original message may have been lost.
While no ancient text is perfect, the Bible stands out for its incredible preservation. The sheer volume of manuscript evidence and the consistency of the text over millennia give us strong reasons to trust it. Despite minor variations, the Bible's message has been faithfully transmitted and remains a reliable guide for faith and life.
All right, we've heard from both sides, and now it's time for our panel to weigh in. Each panelist will cast their vote on whether the Bible is corrupted, reliable, or somewhere in between. Let's get their take. Panelist 1 noted, "As a historian, I'm inclined to side with Leah's argument. The evidence of textual changes, whether small or significant, shows that the Bible, like all ancient texts, has undergone changes over time. While its core message may be intact, the historical process of transmission leaves room for doubt. I vote for corrupted, but with the caveat that this refers to human influence over time, not necessarily the message itself." Panelist 2 said, "As a theologian, I believe that while there are some textual differences, they do not impact the central doctrines of Christianity. The Bible's message of redemption and the life of Christ have been preserved through careful transmission and the vast manuscript evidence. I side with Ezra and cast my vote for reliable." And panelist 3 responded, "I see merit in both arguments. The Bible has clearly been altered in some respects, but it has also been preserved remarkably well. This suggests that while it may not be perfect, it is still a reliable document for understanding the theological and moral teachings it presents. I vote for somewhere in between, acknowledging the tension between human error and divine preservation. So, there you have it. The panel is split, and the debate remains unresolved. The Bible is either corrupted, reliable, or somewhere in between, depending on how you interpret the evidence. But now it's your turn. What do you think? Is the Bible a reliable document, or has it been altered beyond recognition? Cast your vote in the comments below, and let's keep this discussion going. Thank you for watching. Be sure to subscribe for more AI debates where we bring artificial intelligence into the world of philosophical and theological discussions.